Phantom Thread is directed by Paul Thomas Anderson and stars the apparently last performance from Daniel Day-Lewis for this movie. So,
We'll see.
We'll see, yeah. So let's just get started on Paul Thomas Anderson's direction of this film. I mean, this guy's put out some fantastic movies in the past, so what do you think? Does he hold up with this one?
I think that he does a really good job handling the period pieces, and everything about this movie is very well crafted. It's beautifully shot. The sets, the costumes, everything that, technical about it is great. And so I think that's just another sign that, Paul Thomas Anderson is one of the best directors working today.
I agree. This movie is gorgeous to look at, and it's very, I would say, graceful of a movie. It's on the quieter side, but it's just very well shot. It moves right along. It's very calming to me. This movie had a very calming essence around it. And once again, yes, I think he did a great job with this movie.
Yeah, you really feel like you're there. He does a good job of immersing you in this environment. At no point did the period really play into anything.
No, it doesn't even give you an exact year.
No, it's just 50s era London. So
yeah,
it didn't really play into it, and it's not that heavy of an element to where it's like this had to take place in the 50s. But at no point was that in your mind like, oh, it's the 50s.
No,
it's the 50s.
It's used for style.
It's a timeless kind of story. I can get that sometimes this movie just seems a little aimless. But it's more of a display than a story. It's like, look at these people, not A, B, C, D, E, hitting the plot points kind of thing.
Yeah, it is. It's a character study, and it's really with Daniel Day-Lewis's character that we're going along this ride with, and really who he is. And I think that Paul Thomas Anderson directed this so well to convey who this person was, what type of person he was, and just, I think that I get such a great sense of this character. I think he builds it so well without throwing it in our face too much. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, he crafts the character well, and there's a lot of subtlety to it. There's these little moments, like with Daniel Day-Lewis, there are great performances in his silent moments.
Oh, so
just
much,
his facial
so
expression.
good,
so
yeah.
Let's just go right ahead to Daniel Day-Lewis. What do you think?
He knocked it out of the park again. This guy, this guy just can act so well. This will be a bummer if this is his last performance, because I think that he is one of the greats. And this is one of the first movies since the 80s, since he actually used his own accent and voice.
If this is his last performance, I just want to say Daniel Day-Lewis is a treasure, and it's performances like this that prove it.
Yeah, and I think this performance is so subtle, and like I said, you really get who this person is throughout the entire film, but this is a man that at least thinks he knows who he is, and he thinks he knows what he wants out of life and everything, and he is obsessed with his work. And I think that that's what intrigued me so much, is that he is absolutely cannot turn off the work. Everything in his life must adapt to his work life, and it must be catered to that, or else the whole cycle is broken and he sort of becomes completely off the rails or anything like that. And I think that he played it so well, because I think a lot of people can relate to that. They can relate to someone just being so engulfed in their work they won't let anything else in.
Yeah, and I think that along with Daniel Day-Lewis, you have some really good supporting performances from both Vicky Krieps, who plays his lover, and also Leslie Manville, who plays his sister. I think that they were great foils to each other. They were very different in personality and perspective and upbringing, just about as opposite as you can be, except that they both love Daniel Day-Lewis's character and they both want what's best for him. So they find some common ground there. Yeah. And there's a real connection formed between the two of them. And I just think that both of them had really good performances.
I also have to commend, one of my favorite parts of this movie was the music. It just carries right along through the whole film. Every single scene, it felt like somebody was there just composing like an orchestra behind the screen to this movie. It was just going along with it like a play. And I've been listening to the soundtrack on my own since I saw the movie. I really like the soundtrack a lot to this movie.
I'm just going to go out and say this movie is boring. Some of the pacing in this movie is just so bad. I was just like, oh my God, would something happen? Now, I understand this is a very artful movie and there's a lot to be appreciated to it. But in the end, you're sitting there to be told a story, and I think that the storytelling elements have a lot to be desired. Paul Thomas Anderson, I think he totally deserves his Best Director nomination, but there's a reason this screenplay was not nominated. I just feel like the storytelling's a little slow, and it's just that, I don't know, the characters and the performances were good, but nothing was really compelling about this. This just felt a little bit too much like familiar territory. Like, an artist attracts someone who loves them and their art, and what do you know? The artist loves their art more than the person that loves them. It's just kind of familiar ground.
Okay, I can see
I know that. I just unloaded a lot on you with that. But
so having said that, I disagree. I think this movie was very entertaining in its intrigue. I think that I was attracted to the screen the whole time because, yes, it's a very visually good-looking movie. But at the same time, it might be familiar, but a familiar story can be told well and it can be conveyed well, and this movie is. Like, these characters had me interested, and I wanted to see what was going to happen next. I mean, I was invested the entire time. I will say that the first half is more intriguing and a little bit stronger than the second half. One small problem is that, I think you might have mentioned this, but there wasn't any big moments. There wasn't any moment where, like, I can go to somebody and be like, remember that part when this happened?
Yeah,
there
I
really
agree.
isn't that many of those moments. It just sort of flows along. Once again, going back with that, it's just a quiet movie. It's a very subtle, quiet, intense movie. And I think there's a lot left for interpretation, though, you know, especially, I think it's open for discussion.
Right. I do like the themes that they explored in this. It's just that I don't think I could really get behind it, these characters, because I just didn't buy the romance between them, like, at all, in any moment. Like, I don't get why she fell in love with him. And especially, like, when right off the bat, he's kind of a dick to her. Like, he's very cold, and he's very unwelcoming, and it's just like, why are you falling in love with him?
I didn't think so. I really like that intrigue of one person admiring someone else so much for their talent and their intrigue and their mystery that all they want is for them to love them back. That's all they're looking for. They're like, I can do it. I can make this person love me. And I think that happens
But the
so often.
methods that this woman goes through,
exactly, it's where it like sort of
like
picks up a little bit.
that's refreshing.
Yeah, I
that's
think that was
refreshing on an old
well,
tale.
we won't get into what it was.
Yeah, we're not going to spoil
it's
anything.
It's a big part, but
what this woman goes through to earn his
it.
love.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, that's something new. That's something different I hadn't seen before. But in my head, it was just like, come on, people. Like, what are you going to learn? Like, the creative types love their creations more than anything else.
Exactly.
That's why they dedicate themselves so much. But I can't say this is a terrible movie. I'm just saying, like, there's just boring parts to it, and it's hard to get behind the character.
Buffs. So there are our quite conflicting thoughts on the Phantom Thread. So let's put a score to it, Dennis. What do you think?
Yeah, there were parts I enjoyed about this movie, but just overall, I can't, like, give it too high of praise because there just are some pacing issues, but beautiful movie, beautifully acted and directed. I'm going to give Phantom Thread a 7.5 out of 10. Not a terrible movie by any means, but given the talent and pedigree behind it, it's a little disappointing.
I thought you were going to go a little bit lower than that, actually. That's a fairly good score. Yeah, I enjoyed this movie a little bit more. I think this is one of those movies that I'm glad I saw it with somebody else in the theater. I felt intrigued with another person. I'm not sure if it's a different effect if I was alone, but I'm going to go a little bit higher at an 8.5. I really like this movie. I think that it deserves the praise that it's getting from everybody because I think it is a beautifully crafted film, so I recommend it. Buffs. All right, so that's our review of The Phantom Thread. Have you seen the movie? Leave all your comments down below. We'd really love to hear what you think.
And join us next week. Next Friday is February 2nd, Groundhog Day. So what better movie to review than Groundhog Day for its 25th anniversary? We'll be giving you that review next week, but until then, don't forget,
there's no place like the theater.